In the early 20th century, Abbotsford was a developing community, nestled between the Fraser River lowlands and the forested slopes of Sumas Mountain. Agriculture and lumber defined the landscape, with sawmills supplying the timber from the surrounding forests. In 1919, Joseph Trethewey, Abbotsford a lumber baron, built the Trethewey House overlooking the growing town.
So welcome to Trethewey House. Trethewey House is located on the traditional ancestral and unceded territory of the Samath and Matsqui First Nations. So this room is the kitchen. Everything that is attached to the roof, the walls, and the floor in this room has been donated to us. So it's from around 1925 or earlier. There are a few original pieces here and there, like the sink, for example, would be original. But they also had electricity and plumbing when the house was made, which is why that sink has running water in it. And we also have a refrigerator and not an icebox because that runs on electricity. And this is Kitty's room. So Kitty was the housekeeper and she would have been responsible for the cooking, the cleaning, and the overall maintenance of the house. If you notice the white nightstand in front of the window, that was actually belonging to Kitty, so she had donated that back to us and now we have it on display. And this room is the library / the family room. My favorite part of this room is definitely the player piano. So if you put sheet music through, it'll play by itself. So the entire house is done in Craftsman-style. So a lot of the features of this house are very unique. And then we have the parlor. So the focal point of this room is the fireplace, which is made from Claiborne brick. So Claiborne was a pretty big company in Abbotsford. And if you notice on the left-hand side, there's actually two portraits hanging there, and those are of J.O.'s parents, and they're hanging from a picture rail. And that's because if you try and nail anything into the wall, the entire wall would crack because it's made out of plaster and horsehair. So just above the fireplace there, next to that mirror, you'll see a crack, and that's kind of what happens when you try and nail something into the walls. The furniture here is also made from horsehair, which I think is pretty cool. So one of the more expensive things you would own is china, and so you'd want to display that around the walls. And so this house also has a plate rail. So the plate rail has two little grooves in it, just to ensure that none of the plates fall over. And then over there we also have the dining room. Because J.O. Trethewey owned a lumber mill, everything is locally sourced Douglas fir, and there are no knots in any of the wood either. One of my favorite features about the house is how much storage space it has. So right underneath the window of the dining room, you'll see a little sitting nook, and then you can pull up the seat and there's more storage space. We also have a phone in this house, and this would have been a party line. This room is the study. There is also a second fireplace in this room. There is also a picture in this room of the Dinky Loki. So the Dinky Loki would have been used to transport lumber from one part of the mill to the other. There's a radio in the corner as well, which I like to point out because radios definitely don't look like that anymore. And then we can head upstairs. So this room is Joey's room. Joey was 7 years old when he moved in, and he has a pretty big, spacious room. He also has two walk-in closets in this room, which are also pretty big and spacious. And then there's the bathroom. So bathrooms were pretty rare in the 1920s because a lot of families had outhouses. This family did have plumbing though, so they did have a working bathroom. There is also a toilet in this room. The tank is made out of wood and you can kind of see that in the details. And then on the left-hand side, there is a bathtub. And then there's the main bedroom. So Rita was responsible for a lot of the paint colors that were used in this house. We have a walk-in closet, and Rita also had a dressing room. And then our final room here is the guest room. It's a little bit misleading because it doesn't actually look like a bedroom, but this right here is a hide-a-bed, which is made out of faux leather. And yeah, I think that's the tour.
The Trethewey House remained a family residence for decades. The house serves as a documented example of domestic architecture tied directly to the Fraser Valley's early 20th century resource economy.